and welcome to the first episode of the ADR Chat. We're going to be speaking to people in Abu Dhabi who are really doing some good things for the community and just helping Abu Dhabi become a much better place. So first of all, here I've got Anisa Ismail. She is a digital wellness advocate, and she is basically helping families to get a little bit more disconnected from screens. And she's also an amazing author and is coming up with her third book. And her third book is called
I Can't Put My Phone Down.
Welcome, Anisa.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
We're really excited to have you here. So I just wanted to know, I think it's really important to understand that you've been in Abu Dhabi for a while, right?
Mm-hmm.
So could you tell us a little bit about your journey?
Okay, so hi everyone. So I moved to Abu Dhabi 11 years ago. It's gonna be 12 years in August. Time flies. And initially I was like, I wanted to just be here for a year and just try it out and just see like what it would be like. And I was lucky enough to like come and work in an educational institution, and the people there felt like family, and they were so kind to me and so inviting. And I thought, let me give it a few more years, and a few more years has now turned into 11. So
I think that happens to everybody.
Yeah.
You're either here for one or you're here for a very long time.
How does London compare now? Like when you've lived abroad, even for a year, it's just really hard to go back. And Abu Dhabi has the thing about Abu Dhabi that's like kept me here more than anything else is the fact that it's forever growing and changing. And me being here in my 20s, which is like the fundamental decade of growth and change and figure yourself out, I feel like I grew with Abu Dhabi as it grew.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think I've been here 10 years and there's so much that's happened.
Yeah.
What did you've got into this industry now. Mm-hmm. What were you doing? What were you studying before to get into this? Is this something that you wanted to get into?
Well, not on purpose. The thing about me is a lot of things that have happened to me in life has never been on purpose. It's just like I fall into things, and that's also something that I think we'll probably talk about later on. But I studied early childhood education, and that's always been my background, teaching, working with young children. When I first moved here, I was working for 7 years in an educational institution, working with young kids, also working at a university where I taught college students as well at the same time. So it was like I got to experience what it would be like doing something for young children and in the community from a different perspective. And I think in 2017, when I first just made the decision to just start what was Kids Unplugged in the beginning, I noticed that a lot of young children were coming into school and just in the environment were just so on their devices all the time and not focusing in the classroom. And me and my fellow teachers were having issues with children, and we realized that there's a problem. And this was in 2017, before pandemic, before anything else had come into play, that young children were being distracted and were spending far too much time on their devices, and there was no set regulations in place, and parents themselves were also at their wits' end and were like, well, what do we do? But where do we go? And I was like, when I was doing my research, I realized, where do they go?
Yeah.
Like when you have a problem with your child that's on their device all the time, where do you go? You know,
it's a difficult thing to navigate.
Yeah.
Google does not have all the answers.
Google doesn't want to give you the answers. No, well, so that's the interesting part as well. So yeah.
Well, that's true. And so tell us a little bit about your initiative, because you've just mentioned Kids Unplugged. So give us a little idea about what that's, because I think as a community, I think there'd be a lot of people quite interested in that.
Yeah. So Kids Unplugged initially was what it began as. It was an initiative that I started to promote digital well-being for young children, create programs and after-school club activities for young children to attend. And throughout the years, we grew and we changed, and we became the Unplugged initiative, which became more of a community-centered approach. Before pandemic, I keep saying post-pandemic because we're on survival mode. But before pandemic, I did have opened the very first digital wellbeing center here in Abu Dhabi.
Whereabouts?
It was in the Mubadala building. Amazing. Yeah, the biggest build, one of the biggest buildings you'll see as you come into Abu Dhabi. But COVID really made us like have to reassess everything, and it was deemed non-essential, so we had to shut down the space. But the thing about it is that we realized that the community needed it. And so I sought out other spaces and other places like hotels and other kids clubs to still kind of run the program. So essentially we promote digital well-being. We create bespoke programs for families who need extra help with their child. And if you are experiencing, any type of the addiction symptoms, which we've noticed in young children under the age of 8, we create plans that kind of can fight the addiction, and then give them the help that they need, because a lot of young children are now in a space or in an area of their life where they're literally functioning because of a device, and it's incredibly unhealthy. And it's just something I'm incredibly passionate about and making a change.
And so, you, like you said, I mean, that's amazing. Like, I don't know if you have any stats that talk about in the UAE specifically.
Yeah, in the UAE, we have 56% of children under the age of 12 that have their own phones. That's more than anywhere else in the world. And that, for me, is already problematic. We also have a high number of children now that have been going to the pediatrician's office with pains of back pains and joint pain under the age of 12, which, even saying it sounds ridiculous, because it's like, this is the moment of their lives where they're growing and their body goes through so much transformation. But because they spend so much time hunched over on an iPad or a phone, their bodies are actually literally deforming because of this position and the posture that they're in. So these are just small stats. If I go in and like share even more, it can really get depressing. But I'm very solution orientated, and I think the problems, I could sit here and list them all out, but what I'd love to focus my attention and my time on is just solutions. How can we create a sustainable environment for young children to have time with their devices, but also spend way more time doing things that are beneficial for their growth and development?
So then I think a lot of people who are listening would be quite interested to know what those solutions are. So can you mention a couple that you've used, that you found that have worked?
Yeah. I think the one that I always there's two things I say. So step one, I always and you're a parent, so just like let me know what you think as well. But the step one I always say is just let the child be bored, embrace the boredom. A lot of the times they're on their device because parents think that they're bored and they just don't know what to do, so they've got it. But embracing the boredom for a young child allows them to tap into their creative and imaginative side, which they don't get if they're on their devices all the time. So embrace the boredom, let them be bored, let them figure it out. As long as they're not doing anything illegal and criminal, let them do what they need to do in the space that you have in the home. And then the second part, which goes hand in hand with embracing the boredom, is introducing something that I like to call the unplugged zone. And the unplugged zone is a space in your home for your child to really go and just kind of detox. In this space, it could be a corner of their bedroom, it could be a corner of the living room, it could be anywhere, kitchen, wherever. But in this space, it's like their space to draw, to color, to play games, to connect with, their toys. It's a space where there are no devices, there are no TV, phone, iPad, nothing. And this is their creative space. And I think a lot of parents will say, well, I've bought them toys and they can go to their room. But I think spelling it out and saying we have an unplugged zone allows children to know that this is somewhere that they can have that will allow them to still play, but it's not a punishment to not have the device. Because one thing I always say is not having a device is not the answer. Not having an iPad, not having a phone, not having access to any of this is not the answer. It's just, how do we regulate it? Because the thing we teach children, if we say to them, no, you can't have the iPad and no, you can't have this, is we teach them to figure out other sneaky ways to go get it, that either cheat, lie, or steal. It's not skills we want to teach them. So I always say, as long as they learn that there's a time and space for these things and use them in the correct way, there's no harm in that. And having an unplugged zone allows them to know, okay, well, this is the time that I can do something and create something, and it's not a punishment.
See how that works. I suppose for a lot of parents, like I know for me, my job is spent on my phone, on the laptop, literally putting up posts, answering emails, all of that is I'm constantly online.
Okay.
And my daughter even says to me, "Oh, mummy, get off your phone."
Yeah.
So I understand that she can see that I'm on my phone, and her need for having a phone at 10, 11 is 100% because she sees me on the phone, but also because she sees a lot of other kids on their phone too.
Yeah.
So as parents, we're kind of grappling with, I've got to work, so I've got to be on my phone. And nowadays it's so much better, right? Because you can work from home.
Yes.
So when you're working from home and your child comes back from school, they see you on the laptop, they see you on your phone. So we're grappling with that, but we're also grappling with, let's say, society, right? When we were younger, okay, we didn't have phones, but somebody had the newest kicks, or somebody had, you know, the shell suit in my time, right? We had shell suits.
Really showing our age right now.
But actually, there's always been that I want what that person's having. So we're not just grappling with that, we're also grappling with the fact that work is everywhere. We don't work, it's not 9 to 5. We are working constantly. So
absolutely.
So I can totally understand how that is difficult for parents. But what would be your tips on that?
So I mean, of course, I always say, like, children watch what we do, not what we say. So it's like, oh, if we're telling them not to be on the devices, then we need to get off our own as well. And that, I think, has come up far too many times. But the thing about young children, and I noticed this in my line of work, but I've noticed this even with like my nieces and nephews, and children are very forgiving. They have a very forgiving nature. They have a very understanding nature. And I think as adults, we look over this part because we think they're just a child. Communication is so important for young children. To say to them, don't be on your device, is one thing, but then to explain why we are on our device is all they need to hear. Mummy doesn't really want to be working all the time, which is a reality. Don't really want to be on this device all the time, but this is mum's workspace. I'm on my phone because I'm, emailing somebody. This is work. To identify what the source is for why you're on your device not only allows your child to understand why you're using it, it keeps you in check too, because you as an adult, you're kind of going to be like, well, am I aimlessly scrolling through the gram, or am I actually doing what I need to do so I can go back to being with my child, or setting an example? It's not an easy thing, because we're living in an age where, like you did say, like we did have things that came in the way and things that we wanted but didn't have. But we're living in an age where technology is really fast paced, and if we don't get some type of grasp around it and some type of natural way to work with it, it really is going to take over in a way that we might not like. And then later on, it'll be too late to be like, well, we should have done this and we should have done that. Understanding that the children today, the kids who are like 15 years and under right now, because the last 10 to 15 years of, development of technology, they will never experience the childhood that we had, and anyone that comes after that will never experience that. So to come from that mindset of, well, we were children, we didn't do this, that's history. That's a history lesson for them right now. Like when I tell them, like, we used to play outside, and like, what? Like, wasn't it hot? No, like we did so many different things. They don't understand. So the point I'm trying to make here is to communicate with your child of why you're using the device, when you're using it in that moment. Just a constant little, just hold on 1 minute, mommy's got to send an email, but when I'm done sending the email, I'm going to do A, B, and C. Like these type of conversations in those moments, I think, are key. And then also just understanding that your child is watching you, and even your relationship, if it's not a healthy relationship with the device, then you can't expect your child to have a healthy relationship with the device. So we as adults have to check ourselves as well. But why are we on our devices all the time as well?
Yeah, I agree with that, actually, because there's been a lot of times where I'm like, I'm just writing an email and then something comes through and suddenly you're watching a reel for half an hour. Right?
Absolutely. It's a reality. You just got to be honest with yourself, because one thing children are going to be is honest. So you have to be honest, especially when you're around them. And that's the thing, though. They've only got such a limited time to be children.
Yes.
And I think as much as it's a lot, raising children, I could never speak on that because obviously I'm not a mother yet, but it is a limited period. And I think that period is why I feel like it's so sacred, and we've just got to protect.
And it's so true, because actually, talking about this recently, I don't have that long for her to be a child, right? So I need to ensure that those next 5 years or whatever it is, when, because at 15, she's going to be like, don't need you. Yes.
Teenagers. Yeah.
You think I'm embarrassing now. Yeah.
It's like, Mom, go away.
Yeah. But this is it. So I really only have a small amount of time. So yeah, I think in the last maybe year, I've really thought about how much I'm using the phone, how much, and to be honest, now we're at a stage where, you know, after lockdown, after COVID, everything's kind of getting back to normal. And I've noticed that she has many more activities.
Yes.
So we are spending so much time going from school to an activity, maybe to another activity.
Yeah.
And then when she gets home, it's shower, dinner, bed.
Yeah.
So no time for any electronics, even the telly, you know, there's no time. So that is helping. And I think you're right. Finding activities that just don't need a screen can be quite difficult, but actually isn't that difficult.
No.
You just have to play Monopoly the other day.
Oh, nice.
And we've been playing for approximately an hour, and we just got round the board to get all of the different streets or whatever they're called. And then we're like, oh God, we've got another hour, you know, trying to get all the houses and things. So
time flies by,
when you're having fun, because we really enjoyed it, the three of us just playing together, and it's family time. So no, I totally understand about that. So actually, here's a question that I don't know how much you know about it, but I'm learning a lot about it at the moment. AI and things like, you know, you can write articles, you can write essays, you can write all of this, and that's going to have a real impact on our kids' lives. Like my daughter's 10, so she would just probably start using AI. I think she'll learn how to use it very quickly.
Absolutely.
Because again, I think kids nowadays, everything is easy, right? We used to find at lockdown, and I had a lot of parents tell me the same thing, when you had some work to do for school, well, not homework, but just work, you know, because we were learning from home.
Yes.
The kids would need to write an answer. They need to write maybe a paragraph answer, and they just turn the mic on and speak it. So they're just basically transcribing it straight into the iPad, and it's typing it for them. They don't have to worry about spellings. They don't have to worry about full stops, grammar, nothing, because it's just going straight through. So AI is the much more advanced version of that. So how do you think that's going to affect kids, like when you get into college and uni and all of that?
It's so interesting, because a lot of people have said like this, and I'm also doing my research, by the way, on like ChatGPT and all of these different things. But it's so interesting, because a lot of people have said like it's gonna make like these things easy for children. I don't have a problem with the easy part of it, the fact that they don't have to do grammar checks. I don't have an issue with that, because there's a learning process that they can go through to really just kind of combat that. My thing is the mind behind the AI. That's what is more important than anything else, the person, the human. Because as much as these things are going to come into play, there's the human aspect and the emotional and cognitive development aspect of it that I think really they have not been able to fully press into what they're building. And I think that is where we're always going to win, is that if we really humanize our young children to be able to combat these devices. And it's a lot of work. I can see it already in my day-to-day job, and like in the society that we have. There's a couple of boys I work with, and they remind me every day of like why I do what I need to do, because they'll come, you know, to the session and be like, oh, Miss Anisa, you know, today yesterday I was playing this game, and then the guy came in and he killed the thing, and but the way that they tell the story is just so inhumane. Like, it's just, they have no emotional connection. Like, it's, oh, he shot him and he killed him and he did it, and it's just so robotic. And I'm like, the conversation we end up having is, unless I turn it back to them being characters in the game, how would they feel if they were killed? And that's the only way that they are able to kind of like, you know, feel any type of emotion. And it's a work in progress with these boys, but I'm saying all that to say, it's the young child's mind that we have to really focus our time and energy and attention on more than anything else, because this is what's coming now, what we can see now. I'm more worried about what's coming in the next 5 years, the next 10 years, because we don't know. And so the only way we can combat that is making sure that we give children the emotional stability that they need, and cater to their emotional well-being way more than before, because they need it.
So going into that, because obviously the emotional side, you're never going to get to the bottom of that if they are on a screen in that hour or whatever. My question would be to you, what you did say you don't want to stop, you're saying that actually it's not telling kids they can't be on an iPad and they can't have a phone and they can't. What would you say would be the ideal amount of time per day?
Okay. Yeah. So I always say, depending on their age and stage of development, under the age of 2 years old, they shouldn't be on an iPad or shouldn't be on having screen time more than 15 minutes a day under the age of 2. First of all, when it's 0 to 6 months, no screen time, like none. But the problem really isn't even, because we've got two sides to this. We've got like the screen time where like they're on the devices, and the screen time where there's a phone in their face and someone's taking a video of this newborn baby or this 2-3 month old baby. They're just, their brain and their body is not equipped to handle what this device is doing to them. So under the age of 6 months, nothing. Between the 6 months to 18 or 2 years, 50 minutes a day. 2 to 3, I always say nothing more than 20 minutes a day. And all these moments that they're on these devices, let me finish the age. So 2 to 3, 20 minutes a day. 3 to 8, I always say about 45 minutes max a day. But this could be broken up into like bits and bobs. I always say never pull out the device, before any type of feeding time or snack time or anything like that. They should never be watching something while they eat. There's so many issues with that. And never just before they're about to sleep, because their brain's going to be so wired that they won't be able to fall asleep. So anything before 12 midday should be when they have screen time, like before lunchtime will be a perfect time to because they've got the rest of the day to do activities, get tired, have their naps and things like that, and then they can, get some rest. So if they wake up in the morning, have breakfast, and then you have like, okay, we're going to have screen time between, let's say 10:30 to 11. That's a good amount of time for them for the whole day. And then whatever they're watching has to be beneficial. I always say like parents should watch an episode of whatever they're playing for their children, because as that whole thing with Momo, did you hear about that whole story?
Yes, I did. It's coming back round.
It is. But what did that prove? That proved that people could put content out there for young children and parents are not even checking what's out there.
Yeah.
That's a problem, so 20 to 30 minutes, anything educational, anything helpful for your child, because essentially when they're under the age of 8, their brains are sponges and they're taking in information. So really it's going to come back to you, the information that they've taken, because you're the one who's going to see it firsthand play out. So if this is the time that you want them to learn a specific language, play educational content in that language. If this is the time that you want them to learn specific manners or behaviorisms, play something that has that lesson or that activity happening, so they could take it all in.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I mean that really does make sense. I think you're right. Under 8s are really, they are sponges. They're listening and looking at everything. I know that there's things that my little one remembers from when she was 6, for example, that we did, so yeah, I totally,
core memories.
Yeah, they are, and they are so important as well. And then you get to that sort of post 8, let's say, genre. Not genre, that's not the right word, but
8 to 13.
Yeah, so that for me seems like the real key, because they are too young to have devices, but they are aspirational because the 13-year-olds or 12-year-olds have them.
Yeah.
What would you say in that respect? Because remember, these kids are also, it's not writing, it's not that much writing
not
anymore.
That colouring or anything like that.
No, it's sitting in front of your Chromebook that's been given to you by school, and you're doing work on it. So you're kind of, that's your screen time almost, right?
Yeah.
So where do parents who have teens or tweens, if you like, where do they go? How do they tackle this?
So I think the thing that we're skipping is childhood is when children are trying to figure out who they are and what they like. So those ages is like the key age to develop your child's talent. I always say that that age range is a great time to put them in a team sport, because there's things that they learn in team sports and team games that they are key to life. They learn how to work with others. They learn how to be a part of a team. They learn self-discipline. So putting them in a sport that they like, that's a team sport, to try out and see their talent is a tip that I give. The other thing is literally life skills before you lose them to puberty and devices and all these things. This is the time where they've taken in everything under the age of 8. They this is their sponge period. But the 8 to 12 period is when you literally can hone in on what it is that they want to be, who it is that they want to be, and what it is that they need to do to become that person. So if they want to be singers, actors, or now it's just, I want to be on YouTube, whatever it is that they want to do, it's like, this is the kind of time to hone in on it. So look for these key things, the key moments, and put them in these spaces that will allow them to develop these skills. So it's basically their point of developing skills. And by that time that they, reach the middle school or high school, I feel like they'll be fully equipped for whatever's to come.
And speaking about these spaces, tell us a little bit more about your spaces.
So I combine I have a partnership with a couple of different after school clubs, sports clubs in Abu Dhabi, Khalifa City to be exact. And I work with some of these hotels in Abu Dhabi that have kids clubs, and they do after school programs and hotel care for their guests that attend. And the programs that we draw up are all based on different skill sets for these children. So we have our recyclable and sustainable activity program, where it develops a young child's artistic mindset. And then we have the athletic programs for young children who are incredibly active and want to do something that's outdoorsy, or even just pick up a new hobby and play a game. I'm now in talks with a couple of different paddle academies to have young children start playing the sport, which is very big in Abu Dhabi. I don't know if you know.
It's like, huge.
Like, I love it. I play it at least 2-3 times a week, and it's just amazing. But Abu Dhabi has been very supportive with the paddle community. So trying to get our Abu Dhabi children into that is something that I'm now currently working on. So these are just a few of the things.
Great. And I know from your sort of social media that you've been
being revamped, by the way.
No, it's
a work in process right now.
But I know that you've been traveling to sort of get this message across. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I just got back from a wonderful trip to Italy. I partnered with this company called Copselius, and they are a corporate company that, well, actually, they're more of a non-profit organization, but in the corporate sense, they create programs and train teachers in the early childhood field. And one of the programs that they have is the Reggio Children program. And this program is a child-initiated learning program for children who are more into being outdoors and having things that are... I literally did not see much devices in their spaces in their centers, but the community approach, children learning how to work with other children in their own time and in their own space. So I was able to go and tour their centers and their schools, and it was an incredible experience. The Unplugged initiative has programs that are similar to what they're doing. So we're hoping to partner and have some of my programs there, and they bring some of their Reggio Children programs here into Abu Dhabi as well. So
amazing.
I'm excited, yeah.
And do you see that happening this year, or do you think it'll be?
Yeah, but by the end of this year, we'll have something in place. I'm hoping for the academic year as well. What was the most interesting thing, though, about my trip was the amount of energy and time that the community spends into early childhood education. It's a community approach. Like, they really invest in the children. Everything is child-centered. The activities that they have, the places that they go to, it's really child-centered, and their approaches are unique. Like, one of the things I learned while I was there was they have this emphasis on food. I was telling you a little bit earlier about like how I can't eat anymore because I've spent the whole time there just constantly eating. But they have this emphasis on teaching young children about fresh fruits and veg and food from infancy all the way up to 8 years old, where children are actually helping the cooks cook some food, and it was just an amazing experience, and I'm hoping to be able to share more. But yeah, I'm excited.
Well, that's great, because actually Abu Dhabi is so very family child-centric, isn't it?
Absolutely. There's so many similarities. When I was there, I was like, oh, this would work in Abu Dhabi so well, because they're very, like, I saw parents being at these centers, grandparents being at these centers. And so I was like, yeah, this would work in Abu Dhabi.
Amazing. Okay. So I know that obviously we talked about you being an author.
Yes.
And you've already got 2 books out.
I've got 2 books
What are
out.
they called?
So the first one was a parenting guide. It's called How Electronics Stole Childhood. It's out on Amazon. So just, have a look. And then the second book is called Offline is the New Luxury. But the thing about the second book was it came out on March 8th, 2020.
Oh, gosh.
So offline wasn't the luxury. And I will admit that I don't think it really went down well. But, we live and we learn. How was I supposed to know that the world's going to shut down a couple of weeks later? I had no idea. So now
everyone would be online.
If everyone was online, and I was like, oops, this was not well thought out. So the third book that's about to be out, this is a book that I wrote because most of my books have been parent and community centered. Even Offline is the New Luxury had more of a spin for parents. But with the new book, I Can't Put My Phone Down, it's for everyone. Like, I want whoever's got a phone to be able to be like, you know what, there are some points in that book that I learned and had key takeaways from. So
it's a great title.
Yeah,
it's going to resonate with everybody, I'm sure.
If you can't put your phone down, this book is for you. I'm just letting you know.
I'm surprised that I put my phone down.
Like, so where's the phones? The phones are all away. I think the idea behind this book and the inspiration behind this book is I have a very unique approach to the way I use my phone. And I think you and I maybe spoke about this, I'm not sure. But so for the last 11 years, I think if Etisalat is listening, don't kill me, but I've never had a data package on my phone. Just FYI, I've never had a data package on my phone. So what that means essentially is I don't have internet unless I'm connected to Wi-Fi. And I think for me,
wow. So
that's craziest thing, because my friends know this and they're just like, we're so tired of you. But it's either you call me or I call you and I talk to you for a limited amount of time before, like, because I top up my phone and just have credit whenever I need it.
Okay.
And then I just connect to Wi-Fi at home or wherever I'm at. But that essentially has helped me, like, really just not need my phone as much as I thought I would need it. People say, how do you get to places? I've downloaded Google Maps. People say, how do you drive? I listen to my music because I've downloaded my music. Like, you'll see how much of your phone you don't need if you really, like, put in a couple of things. So I'll be talking a lot about, like, those techniques and things like that in my book. But essentially, my relationship with my phone is I don't have Apple Pay on my phone. I don't have my cards connected to my phone. Like, none of that. So the way I've survived essentially is an interesting story. So.
But that's great, because actually one of the things I think is, we're all busy, we're all working, we're all doing these things. One of the things I would say is the biggest distraction of my life is notifications.
Absolutely.
On my watch.
Don't have a watch.
On my phone.
Yeah.
Right. So I totally understand. The only time that I'm not being disturbed is because my phone is dead and I'm charging it.
That's crazy.
Yeah, correct. And so I was thinking about this the other day, because one of the worst distractions, I can't remember where I read it, but they said one of the worst distractions are notifications, and they kind of give you no peace at all. Because you are constantly, even if you're not holding a device, you are constantly online.
Have that, and you have that sudden urge of, like, is someone going to message me? So your phone isn't even, like, face down; it's like right there.
Correct.
And it's near your vicinity.
Yes.
Whereas right now, I'm like, my phone is on airplane mode and I have no worry or no concern, because I'm just like, I'll get to it when I get to it.
Yeah.
And that this relationship that I've been able to build with my phone, even for my social media, you'll see, I think you've seen this as well. I'll take pictures and stuff throughout the day, no problem. If I want to be able to share something, but I'll never post when I'm at a location while I'm there. I'll always post at the end of the day, just before, like, I put my phone down for the evening. And the biggest thing that's helped me with as well is I'm able to kind of, like, see, do I really still want to post this? Do I still really want to have this on? You kind of, like, do this, like, little self-check, like, and then you think, like, how will posting this really, like, affect the people are watching? How does it benefit my brand, or how does it benefit whoever's watching my page and my post? And so
you're right, because also you actually get to enjoy the event, or wherever it is you are, you get to enjoy it, as opposed to enjoying it through your phone.
Absolutely. And I'm the last person. It's so funny because people will be like, oh, but you took pictures. I'll be the last person to, like, remember to post anything or to take a pic, because I'm, like, in that moment. How much of that time are we going to get back? So I Can't Put My Phone Down is something that I think is I'm excited to release. But not only that, it's, like, it's really true to who I am.
No, you're right. the best books are written by
it really
by people's experience, right? Okay, so I think, I mean, obviously you are very much about digital awareness, digital wellness, sorry, amongst kids. You're kind of saying, as grown-ups, we really need to do that too.
Absolutely.
What do you see going forward? Going forward in the future, like maybe even if you keep it Abu Dhabi centric or UAE centric, or even globally, what do you see going forward when it comes to technology and this kind of in the digital wellness arena?
I think more importantly, which is something that I'm really doing a lot of research now on, is there's two things. I think there should be a lot more regulations and policies in place. This whole thing that we're now seeing in the media about TikTok being banned in certain different parts of the countries. The only reason why TikTok is being banned in these places is because it's affecting national security. But then for me, it's like, well, what did it have to go that far for you to realize it's actually affecting a generation of young children's mentality and the way that they think and they operate? So having the right rules and regulations in place, I think, is step one. And then step two is really changing our educational system to match what's coming. I am currently doing some research on the importance of digital well-being becoming a subject in schools and in our curriculum here in the UAE and in different parts of the world, because as you know, like there's been a large amount of cases in like cyberbullying, and even I'll tell you a quick story. I went to Comic-Con in Abu Dhabi, which is an amazing event, being able to see all the different things that are happening, but I love to kind of see what's out there. And then I went to the toilet briefly, and as I was in the toilet, I heard these two young girls. It must have been like 11 or 12. They were near the sink and having a conversation, and they were talking about, like, one of them was showing the other one how like somebody had sent her like snaps and they were like being mean, and her friend was consolidating her and like, telling her like it's going to be okay, and she was like really upset, like how can they say this, how can they message me these things? And it made me, I'm in the toilet, like should I say something? And I stepped out and I had to like tell her, like, listen, like I know it seems like it's a lot right now, but I swear this is not going to matter, and like just kind of like gave her some advice on how to deal with it. But essentially she was being cyberbullied, and it broke my heart. And I think I say that God put me in that place for a reason. I was meant to bump into these two girls. I was meant to like essentially see them and have this conversation. But if this is something I just bumped into by accident, imagine what's happening in our schools and imagine what's happening in our society. So having, a subject in school where they're able to learn about just ways to combat this and deal with this, I think is one thing that I'm personally working hard on pushing forward.
So that's actually interesting, because in my daughter's school, they have something called, and this was just for the girls really, but they have something called Girls on Board.
Okay.
And it's like it's an initiative that basically equips the girls with the tools to deal with conflict, to deal with potentially, I mean, I suppose one of the subjects would be anything in the social arena as well, which I think is something that is quite difficult to manage, not just as children, as parents as well. I think a lot of these things, a lot of these tools that schools or even yourself will be equipping the children with really need some kind of guide for us parents too, because it's so difficult to navigate. Absolutely. And kids are kids, right? 1 minute they'll be cross with each other and angry and upset with each other, and then they'll be friends again 2 weeks later.
But imagine that having a digital footprint. That's the crazy part.
Exactly. And this is where I'm coming to, that when there becomes a digital footprint, that's there forever. And that's something that I think is really, really important to teach the kids more than anything, over and above saying mean things or whatever. Actually, whatever you say in the digital world is there forever. It's there in a screen grab. It's there on a search. Right. It's such but it's so difficult for these. I can tell you, just by having conversations with kids, it's so difficult for them to even fathom that, because that's what they've grown up with.
Absolutely. But it shouldn't be. We grew up, like, if you think about it, we grew up in the playground, essentially, having our fights and our disputes in the playground. But within that, we were taught conflict resolution. We were taught how to deal with things and how to resolve problems. We were taught this. I think what's happened with a lot of the devices, and especially social media, is that it's come into our world and our homes and our everyday environment, but there hasn't been like a lesson that comes with it. And I think that is where what we're missing. More than anything else, we're missing the lesson that comes with the usage of everything else, because it's there. I'm not somebody, and I said this before as well, a lot of times, I said I'm not against devices. I'm not even against social media. I do think that there's things that work with it that are beneficial, but it's just the way we use it and the way that young children use it that I think is what we need to just really hone in on and make a difference.
Yeah, totally agree.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll wrap this up quickly, but I just, for me, I think I'd love to know, I think people listening as well, maybe your 3 tips, 3 small tips. You know, Abu Dhabi review, we do 3-point reviews, right? Okay. So I want your 3 tips on how we can navigate our kids through this digital arena.
Okay, so I will always say embrace the boredom. Tip number 1, I live by this. Embrace the boredom. Let your child be bored. Let them experience or communicate what they're experiencing. Tip number 2 is communication is really key. Having an open space to talk with your children. Talk to the children around your children. Talk to, you know, whoever's in that environment. That communication is key. It can be a bit like boring to have to say step by step, mom's doing this and dad's doing this, but it does help children really understand what is happening when you communicate with them clearly. And number 3 is understanding that it's just how you regulate and use the device that's more important than anything else. It's regulating and having a set time, the same way you've taught your child to have a routine when they wake up in the morning, brush their teeth, they've got to get ready for school, have breakfast, all of these things. It's a thing that just has to fit in a portion of our life. It's not something that takes over our lives. And I think that's what we have to kind of differentiate. So, yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you.
No, thank
really
you.
Appreciate you coming in today.
I'm happy to be here. Anything that involves me talking about this, I'm so happy to do it. So.
Well, actually, if you want to, we'll put it up on the post, all of Anisa's different social media platforms. But do you want to just mention them now?
So it's the Unplugged Initiative on Instagram. We also do have a TV show on, I didn't even talk about it, but on YouTube.
Tell us about it.
So the Kids Unplugged show, we're actually filming season 2 right now, but the Kids Unplugged show is a platform where young children can speak about their relationship with their devices. So it's kind of like the red table talk, but white table, and young children being able to speak about things. And they speak about some very interesting points: cyberbullying, as we spoke about, hacking, social media and filters and how that makes them feel, all these really key points, but it's from their perspective. So the Kids Unplugged show is on YouTube, and Playcation is a platform that we have specifically for our hotel. So those 3 things is what we're doing, and I'll be able to kind of show on.
Perfect. Well, check them out because they are brilliant. And honestly, there's been quite a few tips that I've picked up from Anisa since she's been running all of this for my daughter, who hasn't got a right pad at the moment. All right. Well, listen, thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks, Anisa.
No worries.
Bye.
Bye.